Hello YouTube, welcome to Crime Alley Comics, and welcome to episode 45 of the Comic Book Artist Spotlight. This week's Spotlight is going to be on Gil Kane. And I have a lot of information on Gil Kane, so I'm probably going to split this into two separate videos because I don't want to make this thing, an hour long. So anyway, we will be talking about Gil Kane, and I'll show you books as I'm going along, and I'll probably wait and show my books that I've pulled out on next week's video. And so let's get started with Gil Kane. He was born Eli Katz on April the 6th of 1926, and he passed away January 31st of 2000. He was a Latvian-born American comics artist whose career spanned the 1940s to the 1990s and virtually every major comic company and character. Kane co-created the modern-day versions of the superheroes Green Lantern and the Atom for DC Comics, and co-created Iron Fist with Roy Thomas for Marvel Comics. He was involved in such major storylines as The Amazing Spider-Man number 96 through 98. So Kane additionally pioneered an earlier graphic novel prototype. His name is Savage in 1968, and a seminal graphic novel Black Mark in 1971. In 1997, he was induced into both the Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame and the Harvey Award Jack Kirby Hall of Fame. As I was saying earlier, Gil Kane was born Eli Katz on April 6th of 1926 in Latvia. I believe that's the way it's pronounced. To a Jewish family that immigrated to the United States in 1929, settling in Brooklyn, New York. His father was a struggling poultry merchant, and Kane attended high school at Manhattan's School of Industrial Arts. But he left in his senior year when he saw an opportunity to work at MLJ Comics, later Archie Comics. He recalled in a 1996 interview, "From the time I was 15, I was going up to the comic offices. My first job came the next year at age 16. During my summer vacation between years of high school, I went up and got a job working at MLJ in 1942. I was in my last year in high school when I left. I was 16 and I'd already started my last year, but I'd already gotten my job the summer before at MLJ. So I didn't want to give up my job, so I quit school in the last grade." Until being fired after 3 weeks, Kane worked in production, putting borders on pages. The letterers would only put in the lettering, not the balloons. So he put in the borders, balloons, and finished up artwork. Whatever had to be done on a lesser scale. Within a couple of days of being let go, I got a job with Jack Binder's agency. Jack Binder had a loft on 5th Avenue, and it just looked like an internment camp. There must have been 50 or 60 guys up there, all at drawing tables. You had to account for the paper that you took. Kane began penciling professionally there, but they weren't terribly happy with what I was doing. But when I was rehired by MLJ 3 weeks later, not only did they put me back into the production department and give me an increase, they gave me my first job, which was Inspector Bentley of Scotland Yard in Pep Comics, and then they gave me a whole issue of The Shield and Dusty, one of the leading books. Don't think I've ever heard of The Shield. Or, well, yeah, I think I've heard of the Shield, but not Dusty. He would also do spot illustrations for other studios. His earliest known credit is inking Carl Hubble on the 6-page Scarlet Avenger superhero story, The Counterfeit Money Code, in MLJ's Zip Comics number 14, cover dated May of 1941, on which he signed the name Gil Kane. Other earlier credits include some issues of the company's Pep Comics, sometimes under the pseudonym including Stack Till. In conjunction with artist Penn Shoemaker, Penn Star. He even used his birth name on rare occasions, including on at least one story each in the Timerson Hellnet Continual Publishing Group's Terrific Comics and Catman Comics. In 1944, he did his first work for the Future Marvel Comics as one of two inkers on the 28-page The Spawn of Death in the wartime kid gang comic Young Allies, number 11. That was in March of 1944. And the future DC Comics as the uncredited ghost artist for Jack Kirby on the Sandman superhero story Courage a la carte. That was in Adventure Comics number 91, May of 1944. That same year, Kane either was drafted or enlisted in the Army and served in World War II Pacific Theater of Operations. After 19 months in the service, he returned in December of 1945. All-American Publications editor Sheldon Mayer hired him in 1947 for a stint that lasted 6 months. He contributed again to the Sandman feature in Adventure Comics, and as penciler, Gil Stack and inker Phil Martell to the Wildcat feature in Sensation Comics. Around the same time, he said, he worked with director Garson Kanin when he was involved in TV drawing storyboards. In 1949, Kane began a long-time professional relationship with Julius Schwartz, an editor at National Comics, the future DC Comics. Kane drew stories for several DC series in the 1950s, including All-Star Western and The Adventures of Rex the Wonder Dog. In the late 1950s, freelancing for DC Comics, precursor National Comics, Kane illustrated works in what fans and historians call the Silver Age of comic books, creating characters designed for the modern-day version of the 1940s superhero Green Lantern, for which he penciled most of the first 75 issues of the reimagined characters comic. Comic historian Les Daniels praised Kane's work on the character, stating, "The design was part of an approach that emphasized grace as well as strength, an approach especially notable in Kane's flying scenes. Green Lantern appeared to soar effortlessly across the cosmos." DC Comics writer and executive Paul Levitz noted in 2010 that Kane modeled the Guardians on Israeli founding father Dave Ben-Gurion, even as the human figures in the cast tended to mimic Kane's own tall, elongated build. Kane and writer John Broom's stories for the Green Lantern series included transforming Hal Jordan's love interest, Carol Ferris, into the Star Sapphire in issue number 16. Blackhand, a character featured prominently in the Black Knight storyline in 2009 and 2010, debuted in issue number 29, June of 1964, by Broom and Kane. The creative team created Guy Gardner in the story, Earth's Other Green Lanterns, in issue number 59, March 1968. Kane similarly co-created an updated version of the Atom with writer Gardner Fox. Kane, who by 1960 was living in Jericho, New York, on Long Island, also drew the youthful superhero team, the Teen Titans, a revival of Plastic Man. And in the late 1960s, such short-lived titles as Hawk and Dove and the licensed character comic Captain Action, based on the action figure. Kane and Marv Wolfman created an origin for Wonder Girl in Teen Titans number 22, July-August 1969, which introduced the character's new costume. He briefly freelanced some Hulk stories in Marvel Comics' Tales to Astonish, first under the pseudonym Scott Edwards, and then in his own name, defying the practice in which DC artists moonlighting at Marvel used pseudonyms. He and writer-editor Stan Lee introduced the Abomination as an enemy of the Hulk in Tales to Astonish number 90, April 1967. Kane also freelanced in the 1960s for Tower Comics, and he did Thunder Agents for them, a superhero title, as well as The Tiger Boy, which was a strip for Harvey Comics. Kane then found a home at Marvel, eventually becoming the regular penciler for The Amazing Spider-Man, succeeding John Romita in the early 1970s and becoming the company's preeminent cover artist through that decade. Kane's first Spider-Man storyline culminated in the death of supporting character George Stacy. During that run, he and editor-writer Stan Lee produced in 1971 a 3-issue story in The Amazing Spider-Man number 96 through 98, May through July of 1971, that marked the first challenge to the industry's self-regulating comic code authority since its inception in 1954. The code forbade mentions of drugs, even in a negative context. However, Lee and Kane created an anti-drug storyline conceived at the behest of the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and upon not receiving code authority approval, Marvel published the issue without the code seal on their covers. The comics met with such positive reception and high sales that the industry's self-censorship was undercut, and the code soon afterward was revamped. Another landmark in Kane's Spider-Man run was the arc The Night Gwen Stacy Died in issues 121 and 122, June through July of 1973, in which Spider-Man's girlfriend Gwen Stacy, as well as the longtime villain Green Goblin, were killed, an unusual occurrence at the time. With writer Roy Thomas, Kane helped revise the Marvel Comics version of Captain Marvel and revamped a pre-existing character as Adam Warlock. Kane and Thomas co-created the martial arts superhero Iron Fist and Morbius the Living Vampire. Kane and writer Gary Conway transformed John Jameson, an incidental character in the Amazing Spider-Man series, into the Man-Wolf. Conway, Kane's collaborator on the Death of Gwen Stacy storyline and elsewhere, described Kane in 2009 as a marvelous draftsman and an idiosyncratic storyteller. I quickly learned that working with him Marvel style, that's when a writer gives the artist a plot, and the artist breaks down the story panel by panel and page by page, could sometimes result in lopsided storytelling. The first 2/3 of the story would be leisurely paced, and the last third would be hell-bent for leather, as Gil tried to make up for loose storytelling in the first half. So after doing a few stories with him in my usual loosely plotted style, I began giving him tighter plots, indicating where the story had to be by such and such a page. He seemed to prefer this, and I'm generally happier with the later stories we did together than the first few. So I think I'm going to cut this video off here because I still have quite a bit to go over. So for this week, I'm going to cut this video off, and this will be part 1, and we will do part 2 next Wednesday. So please come back and join us again for part 2. I hope everyone is enjoying this series, and if you once again, if you have any comments that you would like to leave about Gil Kane, anything that you may know, if you've ever met him, or if you've ever had any type of contact with him, we would appreciate learning about those things. He died back in 2000, so it's been 20 years ago, and of course I wasn't going to comic book conventions 20 years ago, so I never had a chance to meet him, and I really wish I had have. But I do have some of his books, and I have pulled out a few. So on next week's video, I will show you the books that I have, that I've pulled for this. I've pulled 4, I think. There's a couple more that I know I have. I just haven't had a chance to pull them, but I did get these 4 out. And I'm sure I probably have more. I just don't have it updated in my spreadsheet. So anyway, between now and next week, I may find a few more to pull out. It's been a very busy year so far, with work and projects going on around the house and different things happening here. So my time is limited. Plus my wife, she just stained the stairs. They go down the well, we have 2 sets of stairs. We got the servants' stairs in the back of the house, and then we've got the regular stairs in the foyer. And she is staining those today, so I won't be walking up and down those steps for a few days. So I have to come up the back way to get to my room. So anyway, we have a lot of projects like that we're doing. So anyway, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you to all my subscribers. I'm up to, I think, 609 now. And I appreciate all the new subscribers. I just want to thank everybody for your input on these videos as I put them up. This weekend is my 600 subscriber contest ends June the 27th. It was the 26th, but since Metarog had it on his sheet as the 27th, I'm going to go ahead and let it go on the 27th. It's no big deal. So and I'll probably do the drawing. I may do that Monday evening. I'm not sure. I might be able to get it in Sunday, but I'm not sure. So anyway, and I've been playing with the StreamYard live stream set up, and I think I may have it working. So I may do the contest drawing live. So with that, I will let everybody go. Again, thank you all for joining me. God bless, and have a wonderful week.